academic staff in federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. The move is aimed at easing long-standing labor tensions and boosting morale across Nigeria's tertiary education system. The approval comes after years of agitation by non-academic staff unions, particularly the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union, over salary disparities and unpaid allowances. It also followed approval of a 40% pay rise granted to the Academic Staff Union of Universities by the federal government. However, the National Executive Council of the Senior Staff Association of Nigeria Universities has insisted that no final agreement has been reached. It threatened industrial action if talks were not concluded by the end of April. So on the education sector, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced the release of results for candidates who sat for the 2026 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination on Friday, April 17 and Saturday, April 18, 2026. In a statement issued by its spokesperson, Fabian Benjamin, the board said over 1 million results from the 2 days had been processed and made available for candidates. The board noted that this latest batch follows an earlier release of results for candidates who wrote the examination on Thursday, April 16. JAMB urged candidates to access their results through its designated SNS channels, maintaining its standard results checking procedure. The federal government has tasked the 7 regional development commissions with the need for economic diversification and self-sufficiency across the regions. This was contained in a communique released by the Head of Information and Public Relations, Sanu Dati, after a 2-day retreat by the Ministry of Regional Development in collaboration with the Regional Development Commissions in Benin City, Edo State. The 2-day high-level retreat themed generating, the 2-day high-level retreat themed generating fresh ideas to unlock the potential of the regions, brought together key stakeholders across government, including the leadership of all 7 regional development commissions, National Assembly representatives, development partners, and senior public sector officials. According to the communique, the federal government also used the retreat to set a decisive course for accelerated regional development. The federal government has earmarked 1.371 billion naira in the 2026 appropriation bill for the prosecution of Boko Haram, terrorism, and other related cases under the Federal Ministry of Justice, representing a sharp increase from the 530 million naira approved for similar cases in 2025. The 2026 provision was drawn from the appropriation bill, as the Budget Office of the Federation had yet to release the detailed breakdown of the 2026 budget recently signed by President Bola Tinubu. President Tinubu signed the 2026 appropriation bill into law on Friday, approving a total budget of 68.32 trillion naira for the fiscal year. The budget includes 5.41 trillion naira for defense and security, reflecting the government's continued focus on tackling insecurity. Analysis shows that the security allocation represents 7.9% of the total 68.32 trillion naira budget. Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai alleged a fresh plot to implicate him in criminal activities, warning of what he described as coordinated efforts to damage his reputation and frustrate his release on bail. The former governor is expected to appear before the Kaduna State High Court on Tuesday, April 21, for a ruling on his bail application. The trial judge, Justice Darius Kerbel, had fixed the date after hearing argument from counsel. But in a statement issued by his media advisor, Muyiwa Adekeye, El-Rufai warned of malicious orchestrations allegedly aimed at ensuring his continued detention. The Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise has called for targeted tariff adjustments to support domestic refining, improve transportation, and expand access to renewable energy across the country. The CPPA Chief Executive Officer Moda Yusuf made the call in a statement in Lagos while reacting to the 2026 fiscal policy measures and tariff amendments. The framework signals a shift towards domestic production, deeper industrialization, and reduced dependence on imports, with measures including revisions to import adjustment taxes across 192 tariff lines, selective import restrictions, reduced duties on inputs, excise changes, and the introduction of grain taxes on imported vehicles. Yusuf said the policy presents both opportunities and risk, depending on sector positioning, noting that higher tariffs on imported finished goods such as food, plastics, textiles, and metals with combined levies ranging from 20 to 70% would boost local competitiveness. Yusuf, however, expressed concern over what he described as a weak fiscal stance on petroleum product imports, stressing that stronger protection is needed for domestic refining. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, says it has not banned airtime borrowing or data advance services in Nigeria. The statement comes a few days after MTN Nigeria said it was suspending its airtime and data credit advance service, popularly known as Extra Time, in compliance with the Digital, Electronic, Online, or Non-Traditional Consumer Lending Regulations 2025. The regulations were officially gazetted and took effect on July 21, 2025. In September 2025, FCCPC said the rules issued under the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act 2028 will serve as a comprehensive framework for registration, transparency, and ethical loan recovery. In November 2025, FCCPC set January 5, 2026 as the deadline for full compliance with the regulations. Providing clarity in a statement, the Commission said claims circulating in social media reports and social media posts suggesting it shut down such services are incorrect. Oil prices have risen sharply following the attacks on commercial vessels and the Strait of Hormuz and conflicting messages about the prospect of renewed negotiations between the United States and Iran. Brent crude futures, the primary benchmark for global prices, jumped from more than 7% in Asia on Monday as the outlook for peace between Washington and Tehran darkened. Prices eased somewhat later in the morning with the benchmark at $94.69 a barrel as of 2:05 GMT, up from just under 90.30 on Friday. The latest price surge came after U.S. President Donald Trump said U.S. forces seized an Iranian-flagged cargo vessel that had attempted to evade the U.S. blockade of Iran's ports. Pakistan is gearing up to host the second round of talks between the United States and Iran aimed at ending their war, but rising tensions in recent hours have cast uncertainty over Tehran's participation as the deadline nears for the end of the 2-week ceasefire. Unlike the first round, now that brings us to the end of the news at midday. Thank you for watching. Good afternoon.